Okay, here it is. That right there, that's cream. It's cream from a cow. It's raw. It's fresh. It's not been pasteurized. It's cream. It's really thick cream. You probably can't tell. It probably looks white to you, but it actually is a little yellowy. It's like cream colored. Creamy. That's what cream looks like. So if you've bought sour cream or cream that's been pasteurized from a store, it's totally white. This, I don't really think you're going to be able to see it, but it's uh, it's definitely got some yellow in it. It is real cream, fresh from a very healthy cow. Not that I specifically know the cow it came from, but I'm confident in the source. And that's it. It's raw cream from a cow. It's only legal to sell that in 8 of the 50 states in the U.S. currently to sell it to the general public. The substance that I consumed to produce my overnight recovery of the ability to walk was 1 pint of fresh cream from cow's milk. By fresh cream, again, I mean raw, as in not pasteurized or sterilized or nutritionally diminished. Um, so I have a couple links there about some of the history of milk, in particular raw milk, and the laws about raw milk, and being that raw cream is a type of raw dairy product, and obviously in milk is a bunch of cream. So if you take the fresh milk from a cow and set it aside, then the cream rises to the top. The cream's already in the milk, so the cream is just part of the milk. Anyway, before I switch subjects from health to wealth, I want to mention forgiveness and trust. Being open to skepticism means the same to me as being open to forgive. Forgiving means releasing resentment and releasing some linguistic interpretation or relationship in language that produces the experience of resentment. If I'm busy resenting the behavior of others, like why didn't I get taught better nutrition when I was younger or something? Well, this person in that group and this restaurant, they gave me this and that and the other. If I'm busy resenting the behavior of others and the results that I've got previously, and I'm complaining about those past results of mine and my experiences from the past, well, all of that busyness can distract from my motivation to change, as well as uh, we could say limit my openness to explore new possibilities. But actually, the way I just phrased everything I just said isn't necessarily the best way or the most useful way to phrase it. Think of it this way. Or if I am motivated about benefiting from change, that motivation can interrupt any habit of complaining or resenting. I give up the complaining or the resenting, or I let the past of complaining and resenting and the past of interpreting things as, a victimization of me, I can simply stop that conversation. Once I notice it's just an interpretation or a conversation that I've been practicing and perpetuating, I can discontinue it. So skepticism means openness to explore something without presuming that it is true or must be true. Also without presuming that it's false, or else you wouldn't explore at all, right? So skepticism means being open to benefits without being dismissive of risks. Okay, so skepticism means I'm interested in knowing what are the risks, not just what are the benefits, but what are the risks. So skepticism includes an openness to recognizing risk as well as opportunity and benefit and so on. So skepticism, at least how I am using the word, means intelligence rather than either extreme of resignation or the blind faith of desperately hopeful despairing. Desperately hopeful despairing. The blind faith of desperately hopeful despairing. Like, this is my last hope and it must work for me. Well, in my case of having consulted with some medical professionals and didn't get much results from that, uh, I would have tried lots of different, nutritional possibilities, especially if they were $10 a pop. But there was no one thing that I was counting on with so much focus and so much blind faith that I was unwilling to explore changes in my behavior and the benefits available through changing my behavior. So skepticism to me means attention to what is actually happening. Like, how does physiology work, for instance? So rather than a distracted obsession on what allegedly should be happening or what allegedly should not be happening. If others do not yet recognize any particular change, I could resent them for not recognizing it. Or instead, I could simply invest my attention in what is changing. So again, if you think of it as a binary thing, there's either investing my attention in resentment, what other people shouldn't do, should do, whatever, and then what I can do. And if I have enough attention in what I can do, what I am doing, what's changing, how things work, then all this stuff of should, I see that how should works, all this stuff of should, how it works, is to be an excuse for me not to focus on what I can do and the results that I can have now by changing my behavior. So when I've been afraid of the reaction of other people, like criticism or even skepticism, that fear can distract from my motivation to change. Or the other way to put it, when I'm motivated to change, that can distract and interrupt any fear or concern about the reactions of other people. Because I'm motivated to change. I like the benefits. I want to know what the risks are. I want to know what the benefits are, and I want to know how to get them. How to benefit from change is what I want to experience and explore and develop. So what may work for me is to withdraw myself from those who seem to me to distract from my motivation to benefit from change. I can forgive them for whatever punishments they might have threatened or actually imposed on me for being skeptically open, me being skeptically open rather than closed, as in blindly loyal to their methods. So if they're using a bunch of medical methodologies that don't work very well, but they want to keep with them, okay? And if they're concerned that I'm trying something else that might work better and they're getting jealous about my results and they're concerned and so forth, okay, I can cease resenting or fearing their response, perhaps withdrawing from them, and instead explore the benefits available from changing my behavior now or as soon as possible or sooner. All right. So that's all background information and background context on what's available in terms of wealth. I mentioned before some of my forecasts. Now let's focus on benefiting from financial change. In mid-2002, I'll tell you more about my forecast. Now, in mid-2002, I began studying the art of forecasting economic change and financial trends. I published my first article in early 2003, identifying emerging opportunities and risks. I contrasted the increasing risks of global lending markets, especially as it related to real estate prices, which were at the time doing very well, but there was more and more risk. Also, clearly, to anyone who knew how to identify risk, it was clearly increasing in the case of real estate prices. So I contrasted all that increasing risk with the recent rebound in strength in commodity prices, such as prices of oil, gasoline, and gold. I concluded that early 2003 article by emphasizing the resulting gains in a particular sector of the U.S. stock market. That stock sector went on to gain over 1,600% overall since the year 2000, from a low of around $35 to over $600 for that group of 15 U.S. stocks. Most people would not know that sector or any of the companies within that sector, but it went up 1,600%, and most investment professionals wouldn't even know of it. So in my publications in 2004 and 2005, I focused on rising fuel prices in particular as the primary factor that would eventually pinch the economies in general and the lending markets in particular, of Europe, Japan, and the U.S. In fact, that had already been going on in Japan since '89, and in Europe clearly since '99, in the U.S. in certain ways since '99 and 2000. So in 2005, when real estate trends began to shift in the Phoenix, Arizona market, I'd been looking for it. I'd been expecting it and was looking for it, and I reported it immediately as the beginning of the decline of the U.S. real estate boom. Also noting the mid-2005 peak and drop in the housing sector of the U.S. stock market, HGX. So the prices of HGX, as well as lots of real estate market data for Phoenix, Arizona, peaked and dropped in the middle of 2005. Also, Las Vegas, Nevada, and that region had a similar peak and decline that early. So that's the kind of forecasts that I've talked about. Rising fuel prices, what they would do to the economies of Europe, the U.S., and continue to do the economy in Japan and other places as well. In particular, the sensitivity of real lending markets to risk and how that would show up in real estate prices, which real estate is so reliant on borrowing and lending, because real estate in the U.S. at least, and other places too, but in the U.S. has become so dependent on financing of those real estate speculations. So when there's a shift in lending behaviors and lending patterns as it relates to real estate, there's going to be a shift in prices. Since 2003, I've also repeatedly referenced the benefits of financial privacy, as well as the value of various ways of relating to debt, including using the fullest protection of courts and bankruptcy regulations. Of course, some people decline to benefit from the protections available through courts, and others assertively explore and obtain those benefits. Some are willing to benefit, some are willing to change, some actually receive the benefits available, and some only more slowly or only to a lesser extent or even not at all. I understand that the simplest way of describing the global economic change is a redistribution of affluence, with some of the most aggressive borrowers being the biggest losers and some of the biggest receivers or beneficiaries being the most conservative investors. However, even aggressive borrowers may have a variety of alternatives, some better than others naturally. While many people complain that the best investing methods of the 1990s are increasingly risky, I say, why complain? Just notice it. I add that the opportunity for safe profits has never been so concentrated as in the transition now underway. Now, that's not something that a lot of people are hearing from the mainstream media, but I'm telling you, as someone who forecast all of these issues as early as, well, published forecasts in early 2003, I actually understood some of them back in 2002, but anyway, I can give a list of other authors who forecasted many, if not all, of these major changes: lending markets, real estate prices, stock market prices, the spike in fuel prices, and so forth. Many people have said these are bad things. Okay, that's probably bad relative to their investments. There are other perspectives, other methods, and other results available. This is a time of immense opportunity because it is so rare that people are doing the kinds of investing methods that would be beneficial under these circumstances that we now have. People are still thinking, my methods from the 1990s that work so well, I'm going to keep trying them, do the same thing over and over, even though I'm getting different results. I'm going to expect what? Look, things have changed since the 1990s. The investing methods that work well in the 1990s are increasingly risky. Their risk has not diminished in the last few years from 2007, 8, 9, 10, and 11. They've actually increased further. And so people have, in many cases, complained about the best investing methods of the 1990s now being increasingly risky, less safe, not as much benefit or no benefit at all. So I add that the opportunity for safe profits has never been so concentrated as in the transition now underway. This transition away from aggressive borrowers towards some of the most conservative investors. So of course, most people do not know how to benefit from the change underway, which is a big part of why the benefits are so great, so vast, so fast that that they can happen so quickly, because most people are not aware of them yet. If 30% or 70% or 93% of the people knew about those investment methods, well, the opportunity wouldn't be so great. But because such a huge proportion of people are about to recognize the value of something, that means there is a great short-term opportunity in being in position ahead of such a huge population of people who currently are not clear about what they will be valuing and wanting to direct their purchasing power toward in the coming years. So naturally, my forecasts have been the target of skepticism and criticism from many people that I've talked to in the last 8 years. In particular, I've noticed that some people who are very concentrated in high-risk speculations have been quite unwilling to review the risks of their recent or current choices, to review their current alternatives at whatever time, and to benefit from the changing economic trends. The highest risk speculations for most average investors is in gambling with financed real estate. However, I've also published alerts at various times about rising risks in stock markets and commodity markets and so on. Commodities like gold and oil. Still, because most investors are investing in those investments like stock markets or gold, they're investing with cash rather than speculating using borrowed funds, as is common in real estate. None of those other forms of investing carry as much long-term risk as real estate investing. Even if people invest in real estate with cash, there's still so much speculation based on borrowing that any fluctuation in the borrowing trends can either really kick up real estate prices or really quickly real estate prices can plunge. So investing in real estate, especially using borrowed funds, can devastate someone's finances, not only with total losses of the entire down payment invested, but huge debts left over even when one no longer has the property. There's a foreclosure or something, but you still owe $50,000 or $200,000. Well, those huge debts can force the most aggressive speculators into bankruptcy. And of course, there's better and worse ways to go into bankruptcies and better and worse ways to come out of a bankruptcy filing or proceeding. But people who are not looking at the risks and not looking at their alternatives and just presumptively using the methods of the 1990s or whatever, thinking these must be good because they worked well in the 90s, those folks may not have particularly good outcomes from their bankruptcy proceedings. They may be amongst the folks who are least well served by the protection of bankruptcy laws, unless they maybe hire a lawyer and he or she is very effective for them. But generally speaking, if you don't prepare and don't set up for things and don't organize your finances for the specific purpose of benefiting financially and preserving your wealth and reducing your debt, well, then a bankruptcy trustee or a bankruptcy court would basically, they're not going to do anything different for someone. People who have a huge amount of debt for mortgages are going to have some unfavorable results if they were to file bankruptcy or if they were to be foreclosed on. And if they were not to be foreclosed on or file bankruptcy and they still are paying, say $1,200 a month on their mortgage for a property that's worth a third of what they bought it for or 1/6 of what they bought it for, that's not especially good either, even if they can afford that kind of thing. So oddly enough, one of the people who heard my advance warnings about real estate but did not alter her behavior at the time and benefit early from the changing economy was the same lady who in 2007 told me about the benefits of consuming raw cream. Here's the container I got it in. This is approximately 1 quart, I believe, and I had a pint. This is a lot of cream, by the way. I had a pint in one day. It was about $4.50 worth of cream, and then that resulted in me sleeping 6 hours that night. At least it seemed to me that was the result of eating the cream. I slept 6 hours that night. I could walk the next day. I was satisfied. It's funny to call it satisfied. I was elated. So when I met her in 2005, I warned her about the coming real estate decline, and she had at that time about $100,000 of real estate equity. She and her husband. By 2007, it was entirely gone. This was in Scottsdale, Arizona, part of Greater Phoenix, and in the period between 2005 and 2007, her $100,000 of equity disappeared. With my encouragement, she exited her real estate in 2007 before it fell below the amount of her mortgage, which immediately did right after she sold it. So the market continued down. Now, instead of losing that $100,000 of equity that she had in 2005, which was almost her entire net worth at the time, that of her and her husband, they could have easily sold their real estate in 2005 when the real estate market in Phoenix and Scottsdale, Arizona were booming still. So it would have been quick and easy to sell it at the time. And with that $100,000, she could have invested using safe strategies to consistently compound her wealth and multiply it. Instead, she did not explore altering her behavior any further than she did. She explored it however much she did. They did not alter their behavior. They kept with the high-risk concentration of speculative real estate investments. And that was at a time of tremendous risk. In 2005, even in 2007, there was still a lot of risk, as you probably recall. So she did not identify the tremendous risk at the time, but only later recognized it by, like I said, 2006, 2007, whatever. I recognized risk and opportunity early. Why? Because I was specifically looking for them. She had some other priority in operation, or else she would have made choices that would have resulted in her identifying the risks and opportunities at the time, and thus she would have made a choice to save that $100,000 or even multiply it. But some other priority must have been in operation. Her priorities led to her retaining that real estate and losing the $100,000 of equity that she had gained in prior years. Likewise, my priorities as far as my diet and my health, my priorities had led to me having a breakdown in my health. I had been a very idealistic vegetarian with a fierce antagonism against anyone who did not congratulate me on the moral superiority of my vegetarian diet. By 2005, I had actually begun a dramatic improvement in my diet. However, I was still very resentful of criticism, very scared. I was not nearly as motivated as I became in 2007 when I lost the ability to walk. I was scared of people's criticism of me, not scared of a loss of the ability to walk. That's actually a key distinction. So over time, I grew to favor health over avoiding criticism. I also grew to favor understanding economic changes and adapting to them over avoiding criticism. I even came to appreciate criticism, at least in some cases. Sometimes criticism is the way that a person who is in distress indicates their distress by saying, "You idiot, you victimizer," whatever. They're indicating distress typically, right? So likewise, voicing skepticism is a way that someone can indicate their uncertainty, along with whatever interest or motivation or curiosity is also present, their openness. So some invest in defending their past investments rather than exploring the present risks and opportunities. Some invest in expressing their contempt and criticisms of other people and systems and patterns and trends. Gasoline prices shouldn't be so high, and real estate prices shouldn't be so low, and let's have somebody else come and fix them and make it so my investments from my strategies from the 1990s work again well. Well, people can say that kind of stuff. That's one investment of time and energy and focus. Some invest in defending their past investments rather than exploring the present risks and opportunities. Some invest in expressing their contempt and criticisms of other people and other people's behavior and so on. Some invest even in criticizing people who benefit from conservatively assessing change and adapting to it. by avoiding increasingly risky markets and focusing on markets with tremendous opportunity for safety and profit. Those people might also be criticized especially by the most aggressive speculators and borrowers, especially after they have the natural results of their aggressive borrowing and speculation and other risky behavior. So the more you are willing to benefit, the more willing that you would be to change your behavior, such as to explore the emerging opportunities of strategies that may be new to you and the risks of strategies that may be familiar to you. Those who are closed to being skeptical will not look. You have to be open to at least being skeptical to look. So those who are closed to being skeptical will not look. And those that are afraid of other people's skepticism will not share. If you're afraid of other people's criticism, you will not share. If you are motivated to offer people benefits and to receive benefits yourself from sharing, in other people's gains, in other words, profit sharing, or receiving a portion of the benefit to other people that they would return back to you, whether I might say to you, if you bring me an investor who I help make $1 million or $100,000, what if I give you, $10,000 or $50,000 or whatever? That might be of interest to some people. Not only receiving benefits from making changes directly within their own investments, but making changes in regard to how they use their time, so they can share with other people and spread the benefits available across a group of people where other people benefit, they benefit in part because of a profit-sharing arrangement. So the more you're willing to benefit, the more that you do to change your behavior. The more that you're generous, the more that you will share with other people so that they can change their behavior and also benefit themselves. But the more that let's say that I've been jealous and envious and contemptuous of other people, well, in that case, I might not be very generous to them. If I've been, resenting them, well, it's not likely that I'd be very generous towards them. I might not interact with them in a way that brings confidence to them or gives them the experience of confidence. They may not even get the value of what I'm offering. They may not see the value of closely looking at opportunities and risks. So those who are open to being skeptical will look. Without presuming anything in particular is true or not true, they'll actually look and study and explore. Look at what is happening without the confusion of propagandized ideologies. Even releasing those ideologies, like something always rises or something's always a bad investment. Well, how about look? Look at the history. Don't just have the reactive. If you have the reactive statement of real estate always rises, okay, well, are you willing to look at the history? Does real estate always rise? What about in 2007? What about in 1992? What about in 1931? Let's look. Does it always rise? So if we have some propagandized ideologies, fine. But let's consider looking at those ideologies for what they are, and also looking at the history. We may, even after looking at an ideology, and say, oh, that ideology doesn't benefit me. It might benefit somebody else for me to believe that, but it doesn't benefit me. So maybe I would be willing to release an ideology at whatever point the ideology is recognized to have been merely the inherited constructions of PR propaganda. They're not based on my own study of history and my own conclusions. They're based on propaganda, things that I've been told, indoctrinations that have been constructed by other people and delivered to me as part of their commercial advertising or whatever you want to call it. So those that are courageous in regard to other people's skepticism or even criticism will share in whatever ways they share. Those that change their behavior in accord with emerging trends will benefit. Those that invest in methods that are increasingly risky will be increasingly motivated to change their behavior, such as when someone loses the ability to walk suddenly. Somebody loses $10,000 of real estate equity in a month. That might alert them to considering a review of the actual opportunities and risks present, as presented perhaps by some